Welcome to the Herd's official YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check out the Colin Cowherd podcast, all of our NFL instant reactions, and more football content.
So Kyle Shanahan, I've said this before, you don't want to justify things in pro sports. You don't want to justify draft picks or justify decisions. Just who's hot and who's healthy. For the Niners, the hot quarterback is Mac Jones. The healthy quarterback is Mac Jones. I would be in no rush to bring back Brock Purdy. Here's Kyle Shanahan on the Mac Purdy situation.
It's not a hard decision. It's just more about Brock's health. I mean, it's been awesome how Mac's played. He's been great. But we got a lot of confidence in Brock, and we know Brock will play at a high level too as long as he's healthy. That's the world. I mean, anytime a backup quarterback comes in and plays good, I mean, that's all anyone talks about. You know, I don't think anyone talks about what people have done in the past, whether it's Brock or whether it's anybody. I mean, that's just how the world works with media or anybody.
Okay, so here's how good Mac Jones has been without his number one receiver, Brandon Ayuk, without his number two receiver, Ricky Pearsall. Hasn't had them. So let's do a little blind resume. I'll put up Mac Jones's numbers. And four categories I think are pretty important. He's completing 70% of his throws. He's averaging 270 yards passing, second in the league without Ricky Pearsall, without Brandon Ayuk. He's got 3 300-yard games, tied for first in the league, and his passer rating, pretty good, 97.5. That's good. That's a starter in the NFL. That's a BB plus quarterback. So let's put those numbers up. Those are real numbers. Multiple 300 games, 270 a game, 70% completion percentage, high 90s, okay? So let's look at this first for our radio audience. This first quarterback is close, but it's just a tick in all the categories, just a tick less of a quarterback than Mac Jones. Who would this be? Well, Justin Herbert. Now, Herbert is missing both his tackles, and he doesn't have Christian McCaffrey. Well, Mac Jones is slightly better than Justin Herbert. All right, let's do it again. Let's go another one. I mean, Justin is missing both tackles. This quarterback, I mean, this is unbelievable. They're almost duplicates. And again, no Ricky Pearsall, no Brandon Ayuk. These guys are duplicates. So who is the doppelganger? Who is the duplicate of Mac Jones? Oh, Dak Prescott. 2 weeks ago, you had him as MVP. He's got CeeDee Lamb. He got George Pickens. Mac's doing it without a number one or a number two receiver. All right, let's do the next one. Well, this one is unbelievable. I mean, Mac is clearly better than this guy. Mac's got more first downs, more 300-yard games, more yards per attempt, more yards per game, much more accurate. Who is this stiff? Oh, it's Baker Mayfield, who's having a great year. Okay, Baker's having a very good year. All right. Well, we can do a couple more to prove my point. Let's throw another one up there. Here's another quarterback who, I mean, might as well be the exact same numbers. Mac's a little bit more accurate than this quarterback who has one more start. Who's this guy? Oh, Patrick Mahomes. Okay. Who's got, by the way, an array of wide receiver and tight end talent that I'm not sure anybody else in the league has. And Andy Reid. Okay. But hey, let's rush back old sore toe Brock Purdy. Let's go one more. There's one more quarterback. Again, the numbers are almost precisely the same. The difference is Mac wins. This guy's 2-6. Who's this guy? Oh, that's Brock Purdy's last 8 starts and Mac's last 8 starts. Very interesting numbers. Okay, JMac, you can go ahead and respond if you'd like with that one.
I muted myself because I had some choice expletives that I was muttering. Those Brock Purdy stats are a joke. Colin, listen, nothing makes my blood boil more than a blind quarterback test. So what are you saying? Let's just put it all the cards on the table. So you compared him to Mahomes this season, Herbert this season. What's your overarching thesis? Mac Jones is a starting quarterback. Mac Jones should get a max money deal. What are we saying here?
Mac Jones is a starting quarterback in this league. If you look at him with Josh McDaniels, he was a Pro Bowler. If you look at him in San Francisco, we've seen Baker reborn. We've seen Darnold reborn. We're watching the next rebirth, and it's Mac Jones, who is clearly a franchise quarterback.
So
Absolutely.
So the Niners should keep him and trade Purdy, trade him for a lot since he's got a ton of value, and start Purdy. What do you think is a move here?
What would I do?
Yeah.
I'd move Brock Purdy.
All right.
I'm watching Mac Jones.
I'm just so floored. I don't even have a rejoinder at this point. I mean,
okay. By the way, Brock Purdy has value, but I got
not with that new contract. He just signed it last offseason. I mean, he's probably got more contract or more appeal to teams than Kyler Murray. But I don't see a big market for Purdy at this number.
Let me ask you this: Arizona. They want to start over. They want to move off Kyler Murray. Brock Purdy's the opposite of Kyler Murray. He's totally dedicated, doesn't care about baseball, going to sit in the pocket.
But, Colin, go look at the division leaders. Bo Nix, rookie contract. Daniel Jones, cheap contract. You look around the league, the best teams, by and large, not all of them, are with quarterbacks on a cheap contract. It's not a supermax deal, to steal a phrase from the NBA. Like, I don't think anybody's going to want Purdy. And I love Brock Purdy. You know, he's my guy. Shanahan loves him. But I don't see, like, all of a sudden, don't tell me the Jets are going to, like, bite on Brock Purdy.
No, I'm saying
no.
This is not an anti-Brock Purdy. It's, I can get Mac Jones for half the price. That's what it is. Why do you think Baker and Sam Darnold come at such value? Because when you're reborn, you don't take the big contract, right? Like Sam and Baker want an opportunity to flourish and build up their legacy. That's what Mac wants. Mac doesn't want to be known as a bust. Mac Jones doesn't want to be known as New England Mac with Belichick or Jacksonville Mac. He wants to be, so you're going to get a discount on the deal with Mac Jones.
So, could they flip Mac Jones to the Raiders?
I don't think Mac Jones with that.
Oh, wait a minute. You don't think Mac Jones would fit in that system? You mean away from Kyle Shanahan?
No, I'm saying when Mac Jones is proven, when you give him an elite offensive coordinator or coach, he's really good. He's really good. And we've seen this over and over in the NFL in recent years. When guys get the right fit, they're really good. I mean, he's a first-round pick for a reason. This is not anti-Brock Purdy. But my take is, let me just throw this out. Let me just throw this. You know I love Joe Burrow, right?
Yeah.
I have said one more injury to Joe Burrow, and you have to go find another quarterback. And I love Burrow. Okay, let me ask you, what if you brought Purdy back in 2 weeks and he had another injury week 16? Would you then acknowledge we have a problem?
I would just say he had a rough season at that point. I would hope. I mean, it's not like he's brittle.
Okay, so the Saints, Browns, Jets, and Raiders all projected top 10 to need the quarterback. If Dante Moore doesn't come out, Mendoza's first quarterback off the board, no dispute. You're going to reach for all these guys? I
don't think it does. Let me flip it on you. Instead of forget Purdy, I don't think the Niners are trading him. Shanahan loves him. The GM Lynch loves him. The Pittsburgh Steelers have an aging Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be done after this season. They have no path at quarterback after Rodgers. Would you take a chance on Mac Jones as the next Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback?
If I was Mac Jones, I wouldn't want Pittsburgh. If I was Brock Purdy, I wouldn't want it. I would go to an offensive-leaning organization. That's what I would do. I look at all these organizations. I'd go to Cleveland. Like if I was, Cleveland. Yeah, I mean, if I'm Kevin Stefanski and I don't get Mendoza and Dante Moore stays in college, I'm not reaching. I'm going to go get Mac Jones for a nickel. That's what I'm Kevin Stefanski. So you have 2 first-round picks. And my take is with Cleveland is you could draft the quarterback with your second pick. But if you don't get Mendoza and Dante stays in college, none of these guys feel like play immediately. Mendoza can play immediately. True. Dante, I think, could play very quickly.
But the rest of the went 25th, and you seem to love him, so there could be value at the end of the first round.
Yeah, could be. I would take Mac Jones. If I was Kevin Stefanski's got to start winning games. Either give me Mendoza or Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones is better than anybody in this draft except Mendoza or if Dante Moore came out.
What's so complicated about Jones is this is just 8 games, Colin. I mean, Jacoby Brissett's looked pretty damn good here for, 5 games? 8 games is a tiny sample size with McCaffrey, right, and Shanahan. I mean, if he goes to Cleveland, what kind of contract do you give him? Do you give him a Baker Mayfield deal, $30 million?
Yeah, you give him a reasonable contract. Again, these guys that fail and get beaten up, Darnold, Baker, they usually give you a much more favorable deal, half of what it would be for somebody else.
Well, since, Shanahan's tight with Kevin O'Connell, Is there any interest in J.J. McCarthy continues to struggle? Let's bring on Mac Jones?
That is interesting. I'm just telling you, what I've watched with Mac Jones, we got to be fair here. He's not a bridge quarterback. He's a franchise quarterback. Bears, I'm telling you right now, Minnesota's struggling. J.J. McCarthy's not practicing today. Detroit offensive coordinator, basically Dan Campbell, stepped in and took over the play calling duties. Not good. And Green Bay's lost. So it's the Caleb Ben thing. It's a work in progress. It's fascinating. But I'll say this. I've defended Bo Nix on this, and I'll defend Caleb. When you're a young quarterback, if you're winning, it's kind of all I care about. As long as you're not getting in the way of winning. Bo Nix has been great in fourth quarters, and Caleb Williams has been really great in fourth quarters. And they're both durable. You give me durability, you're great late. I worry when you're great on script and stink. Remember the first couple of weeks, Caleb was good on script, wasn't after. That worries me. Bo Nix isn't very good on script. Caleb's fine. They're actually later in games when you got to make plays, they use their athleticism, have a sense of urgency. They're both good. Here's Cosell on Caleb, what he sees.
There's always plays where I know that when Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams get together the next day and go over the film, that Ben Johnson's going to point out a lot of things. But he makes 3 to 5 plays every game that are truly wow plays, and he makes some incredible throws.
Yeah. Put up the NFL schedule this week. It's a very, very good weekend for games, and I don't think you can underscore this. Detroit's at Philly. That could be a loss. If Chicago beats Minnesota, boy, this gets really interesting because that Detroit outdoors at Philly, that feels like an L. That Philadelphia is one of my favorite picks of the weekend. So keep your eye. This is a big moment for New York and sometimes for Chicago, and sometimes you need breaks. And my feeling is if J.J. McCarthy's not going to play and you don't really know what you're doing at quarterback, that may be the break. The other thing we talked about, JMac brought this up, it's a huge weekend for the Chargers. Because if the Chargers beat Jacksonville and Denver topples Kansas City at home, Kansas City is not winning that division. That means they're going to have to go on the road, no Arrowhead. So the Bears and the Chargers are in really good spots. They control their destiny this weekend. Any game, JMac, that jumps out to you on this board?
So the big numbers guy, he comes on my podcast, Aaron Schatz. I don't know if you know him. If the Chargers beat the Jags, they are 91% making the playoffs based on future schedule. If they lose, it drops to 58%, essentially a coin flip. The Jaguars, if they lose this game, only a 19% chance at the playoffs. So that opens the door for someone to sneak in a wild card spot. Could it be Pittsburgh when they get passed by the Ravens? There are some huge swing games this weekend. I actually think if you look at Minnesota's schedule, I don't know if we can call that up, Colin, this is must win for them or their season is over. The Vikings schedule is just brutal down the stretch. And you like to say they don't even have a quarterback. So I don't see a path to the playoffs for them. I think the Bears obviously have a much better shot, but Minnesota's schedule is just too difficult to get in the playoffs. And I saw my guy Van Ginkel's not practicing. He's hurt all season, and he's a game changer off the edge.
Yeah, this is a real moment for Harbaugh, Herbert and the Chargers, Caleb, Ben and the Bears. It's a real moment. And if you're going to be a playoff team, these are the games you have to win. It's not a big ask. Can you beat J.J. McCarthy or can you beat the Jags, who really have no home field advantage? So if the playoff picture today, and I think the NFC playoff picture is mostly what it's going to look like. Right now, the playoff picture in the NFC, Philadelphia, Seattle, Detroit, Tampa, Rams, Bears, Green Bay, San Francisco on the way out. I think that kind of looks like, if the Bears win this weekend, that kind of looks like it's one of the good. Now, AFC's different. It's Colts, Denver, New England, Pittsburgh, Chargers, Buffalo, Jacksonville. I think Baltimore wins their division. Pittsburgh gets bumped out. No wild card from that division. And I think Kansas City gets in if they win this weekend. If not, all bets are off.
So team to watch, Houston Texans. I know they've been garbage and they've killed me at the gambling window. Davis Mills in line to start this week. They're against Tennessee. Colin, maybe they're the team that bypasses the Jags. Because, again, that defense is pretty nasty. Stingley, Will Anderson, Hunter, they're formidable. I do wonder if they could play spoiler. If Mills can get the win this weekend and then Stroud comes back from the concussion, perhaps with your guy Woody Marks, really, he's looked sharp in the backfield. I don't know how closely you're watching the Texans, but they are a dangerous, maybe they sneak in.
Yeah, no, Texans schedule is brutal. You don't want to go there with the Texans. Their schedule is Bills, at the Colts, at the Chiefs. Forget it.
Well, that Chiefs game swing. I'm on an island here. I still don't think the Chiefs are a lock for the playoffs. I'll kind of look like a fool, which, hey, it happens to all of us. You know, if they sneak in. But, I think I'm going to take the Broncos. I'm taking the points, Colin.
Yeah, this is one of the best weekends in a while. Bears-Vikings means a ton. I think Tampa and Buffalo has to win that game. I think they will. Chargers-Jags, lot riding on it. Seattle-Rams, game of the year. I'll tell you, potential upset. Keep your eye on the Cleveland Browns hosting Baltimore Ravens, third straight roadie. It's going to be cold. The defense by the Browns at home is not only the best in the league, it's the best by a long shot. Cleveland at home, go look at the Cleveland Browns depth chart. Their defense has dudes everywhere. Yeah. They've drafted pretty well on the defensive side. They just got to find a quarterback. Kansas City, Denver's massive. Detroit, Philly, massive. There are like 6 huge swing games this weekend. There's a lot going on in the NFL. Giants have an interim coach. Eagles, A.J. Brown now has all the leverage. Didn't trade him after the Super Bowl. Didn't trade him at the trade deadline. Well, A.J. Brown knows he got the leverage now. They're stuck with him. What to do in San Francisco with Mac Jones? He's under contract with the Niners. They'd have to trade him, but if Dante Moore doesn't come out after Mendoza, there's 4 teams in the top 8, 9 that need a quarterback. All of these questions. Albert Breer joining us live Monday morning, quarterback. Let's start with A.J. Brown. Did Philly did they seriously consider moving him at the deadline? Because there was noise and drama. There's more after it, but there was some before it.
No, I mean, I think they may consider doing it after the season, but based on where they are and how leveraged they are to win in the here and the now, they're defending a championship. This is what they signed up for. They knew what they signed up for. And this is honestly one of Nick Sirianni's strengths, is being able to handle and manage egos. It's one of the reasons why they could afford to take Jalen Carter 9th overall when some teams had him off their boards. And it's why you can acquire a player like this who wasn't always perfect in Tennessee either. So, I think the Eagles long ago made the decision they were going to ride it out this year with A.J. Brown and, went past the trade deadline without much thought of moving him. Could you get to the offseason and could things change then? They certainly could, Colin. I mean, that's when you have the wherewithal to actually replace him on the roster, which would have been difficult to do in season. And we'll see what his value would be. That's a factor, too, here. I mean, he's going to be 29 years old. He's got, some chronic knee issues that was part of the reason why Tennessee traded him in the first place. And so, I don't think you can expect to get back for him what you traded for him, a few years ago. Certainly I think that'd be on the table in the offseason, but it wasn't last week.
We were talking about this with Mac Jones earlier. They're in no hurry to bring Purdy back. Mac's had a really good season, 3 300-yard games without Ricky Pearsall, without Brandon Ayuk. I can see Minnesota, if J.J. McCarthy plays out the season and they don't feel right, and they're like, they do in Indianapolis and go get somebody they like in the league. This is how Darnold and Baker and Daniel Jones' career has been resurrected, that teams are like, there may be one quarterback in the draft we like. We can't get him. Let's go with something we know. I don't know. I think Mac Jones is our next reclamation project. What do you think the Niners do?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, Colin, because there are some teams that are already looking at the idea of what we do in the offseason, and could there be another Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Daniel Jones, Geno Smith type of story out there to go and seize upon, especially, like you said, with the draft class, maybe not looking like what people had hoped it would be coming into the year. Nussmeier gets benched in the middle of the Alabama game. Drew Aller is hurt, right? Lenore Sellers maybe going back to school. Fernando Mendoza looks like he's going to go high up, but he may be the only first rounder at this point. You know, we have to let those things play out. But right now, it does look like there's going to be more teams needing quarterbacks than are going to be available in the first round of the draft. And so you look at these reclamation projects, and I think the Niners would look at the idea of moving him to get some draft capital because they have to get younger. And they won't be the only one. You mentioned Minnesota, you know, potentially looking. That could be one of the teams that's looking for one of those reclamation projects. You know, I think Mac Jones is in that category. Some teams have looked at the idea, could Kyler Murray be available after the year? Could Tua Tagovailoa be available after the year? I think there are going to be teams on both sides of this coin. There are going to be teams that are going to be looking at a player on their roster and say, maybe we've, you know, reached the end of the road with this player. Maybe we can get something for him. And I think on the other end of the ledger, you are going to have teams that are going to be looking to see if they can find their own version of Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield, or Sam Darnold.
So I was thinking, I mentioned this, that not all coaches that get fired are bad coaches. Mike McCarthy. The two examples I have used to comp Sean McDermott are Chuck Knox and Marty Schottenheimer. Excellent, but they didn't win enough in the postseason. They were seen as conservative guys. They get to the postseason. Chuck Knox could turn the Seahawks around, the Rams around. Marty did the Chargers. But eventually, people, you start winning those games, they want postseason success. So I've said, I feel McDermott is now our Chuck Knox. Nobody disputes he can coach. But there are holes on this offense, and let's say Tampa goes into Buffalo this weekend and wins.
Yeah.
I think the GM is safe and McDermott is.
Right.
But boy, that Miami game, if you went home and lost to Tampa, it's going to get really uncomfortable. Is there a hot seat with McDermott, or is this just media talk thousands of miles away from Buffalo and we don't know what's going on?
I think for right now, it's just media talk, right? But I would say that having a quarterback of the magnitude of Josh Allen, who, I mean, has probably been the best player in the league over the last 2 years, does amp up the pressure on everybody to get it done. And, you know, there's a feeling like if you keep knocking on the door and you can't quite get there, then do you have to look at something else to give yourself a spark? I don't think anybody, like you said, would argue with the job that Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane have done. That they've gone to the playoffs in 7 of 8 years, considering where Buffalo was when they got there. Pretty remarkable. 6 playoff years in a row, 5 AFC East titles in a row. So, like, I think you take into account everything they've accomplished. I'm going to give you another comp here that I think is probably apt in this case. Tony Dungy and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And if you go back and you look at the mid-'90s, right, that Buccaneers team that Dungy took over was a sorry outfit, right? Like one of the doormats in all of sports, almost like you had to be there to know how bad that was, to remember what that was. They were the laughingstock of the NFL. Tony Dungy gets there. He gets them up to level ground. I think they made the playoffs 4 times in 5 years, went to an NFC title game, and they kept knocking on the door and knocking on the door. And as they went, Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks and Rondé Barber and John Lynch were getting older. And eventually it got to the point where we need somebody to put us over the top. It didn't mean Tony Dungy couldn't coach, but you remember what happened at the end of 2001. They started to flirt with Bill Parcells. That didn't work out. They trade for John Gruden. They win a Super Bowl the next year. Can argue whether or not that was the right move for the long term, but it did get them a championship in the short term. So that's the one that I think of when I'm thinking of this situation. Again, like I don't think there's any hot seat there now. We don't know how the rest of the year is going to play out. So if Buffalo were to somehow miss the playoffs, which I don't think is going to happen, to be clear, then I think you start to hear a little bit more of that based on where they are and based on the urgency that's created by having a player of the magnitude of Allen.
It's really interesting on the Packers. So all of a sudden, Detroit's head coach is taking the game plan away from the OC. Minnesota's got a J.J. McCarthy issue. The Bears are surging and appear to have, the next great young coach, Steichen and Ben Johnson. And here's Matt LaFleur with an offense that is lost. They can't run the ball, and he'd like to. They lost Kraft, but, just no identity. Cleveland losses. Carolina losses. Can't score.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's absurd to question Matt LaFleur. But it is with it. It always matters if your rival is surging, and you watch Chicago. What do you make of what's happening? The heat in Green Bay on LaFleur and company.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of reasons why people are bringing this up now. Number one, it's a changing of the guard at the top of the organization, right? Mark Murphy was the president there for almost 20 years. He hired Matt LaFleur. He retired over the summer. Ed Policy, who had been there before, comes in as the team president. They don't extend LaFleur or the general manager, Brian Gutekunst, which naturally raises the question, like, does the new team president, who ostensibly in Green Bay is the owner, does he want to bring in his own people? So that's number one. Then number two, you've got this group of young players that you've built around. It's Jordan Love, but it's also a lot of the other guys around him that are right there in year 3, year 4, year 5. And this is when the rocket ship should be taking off. And then you trade for Micah Parsons, which only pushes the chips further into the middle of the table. And so, like, there's that feeling that this is your all-in year with Micah Parsons coming over, with Jordan Love now in a $55 million per year contract. And if you're not performing to the standard, then, you know, those questions naturally are going to come up. New team president, big expenditure on the quarterback, big expenditure on a defensive star. So, like, of course, that question is going to come up. Like, is this Ed Policy's guy going forward? That said, I think he is, you know, and I think if you look at like the value that Matt LaFleur brought to the franchise over, you know, his early years when he was managing the Aaron Rodgers mess, he was developing Jordan Love in the background. He got Jordan Love ready to play. There's a ton of value in what Matt LaFleur has accomplished. So I think if this somehow goes the wrong way, my guess would be there may be a staff shakeup. There may be some new offensive coaches there, because I think Jeff Hafley's done a great job on the defensive side of the ball. But I'd be surprised if LaFleur wound up gone.
Yeah. Finally, I know how this Mike Kafka thing is going to work, is that the media is going to like him because he's friendly and smart. Jackson Dart will like him because he played in the NFL at quarterback. End of the season schedule for the Giants, the weakest part of their tough schedule, the last 4 games, they may win a couple of them. And by the way, he's not as bombastic or as intense as Dable. So the players will probably like him. It's my substitute teacher, the interim coach. Everybody always loves him. And then 75% chance the Giants are like, you know what? He's our guy. And I said this earlier. Here's what works in New York. Patino, Torrey, Coughlin, Parcells, culture changers, where you put up kind of a fortress around your culture. And it doesn't matter what the sport is. Pat Riley, Tibbs had a little bit of this. I got an identity. It's a culture beyond just scheming. I mean, I wouldn't hire Bella. I would go Mike McCarthy or Lane Kiffin. What do you make of, I think this Kafka thing, I called the GM. He said, listen, doesn't have much presence, smart guy, good guy. They're going to like him. Players are going to like him. How do you think this thing unfolds?
So I think you're right to feel like this is a very real audition.
Yes.
The big reason why they fired Brian Daboll when they did, and it's not a Giants type of thing to do an inside season firing, but it's the definition of insanity to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. They're 2-8 for the 3rd year in a row. They haven't won consecutive games in almost 2 years, which is pretty remarkable. And they had the blown leads, so they had the big wins, then they regressed. They had the big win over the Chargers, regress against the Saints. They had the big win over the Eagles. They have the blown lead the next week against Denver. Then they have another blown lead against Chicago. So clearly they're looking for a spark. But the other thing they're looking for here is a real evaluation of Mike Kafka. And I would say this. I would pay attention to the general manager's history, okay? Joe Schoen was in Miami in 2015. In 2015, the Dolphins fired Joe Philbin 4 games into the year. The interim coach there was Dan Campbell. By the end of the year, Dan Campbell's handpicked coordinators were Lou Anarumo and Zach Taylor. And there was a feeling in that building they had a pretty good thing going. And then they wind up saying, nah, you know what? We're going to go with Adam Gase. So look, I think that they're going to cast a very wide net here. That's their intention. They've done a lot of different things over the last 10 years, right? They replaced Tom Coughlin with the young offensive assistant, Ben McAdoo. That doesn't work. They bring in the retread, Pat Shurmur. That doesn't work. They bring in the CEO type, Joe Judge. That doesn't work. And then they go back to the offensive assistant now, Brian Daboll, and that doesn't work. So they are going to cast a wide net and look at a lot of different types of coaches. But look at Joe Schoen's history. And I just wonder with Joe, is there a little bit of back in Miami 10 years ago, maybe we should have paid more attention to the interim coach because we had a really good one in-house in Dan Campbell. I think that tells you what you know, at least about Mike Kafka getting a shot. Not saying he's going to get the job, but I think he does get a legitimate look.
Albert Breer, good stuff. Monday morning quarterback. All sorts of moving and shaking. Big NFL weekend, some real big swing games. Good seeing you, Albert.
All right, thanks, Colin.
All right, let's start the hour with the Kansas City Chiefs. Everybody's Super Bowl team, Colin. They are only 5-4, currently out of the playoff picture, but they're still really in the mix, as everybody knows. KC has won 9 straight division titles. Can they make it a 10th? Patrick Mahomes says, yes, there's a pathway.
That's always our first goal. It's like the first goal we have that Coach Reed puts up is win a division, and we understand that it's always a challenge. And you have to go up against really good football teams that are scouting you all year long. And so we've been really good at that over these last 7, 8, 9 years, whatever it is. And so we got to continue to get better and better. And we have a lot of division games in front of us. And so if we can go out there and handle business and do what I think we can do, we can find a way to win this division. And so everything is kind of out in front of us. We just have to go out there with the right mindset.
So a lot of the Chiefs critics have said, who have they beaten? So here's my question. If they beat Denver in Denver, is that enough to appeal to the critics?
That's a great question. I don't have an answer because, sometimes beauty is in the eye of the beholder, Colin. What if this is a 17-16 slugfest and KC wins on a last-second field goal? Is that a great win? Not covering the spread on the road? I don't know. I mean, we're talking about a Denver team. They don't have a lot of great wins. I know the Philly win. They kind of lucked into that one, down 17-3 in the fourth. I look at the schedule, Colin. There's 2 games this weekend that are enormous swing games for playoff potential in divisions. This one and Chargers-Jags. I saw some stats that if the Chargers win that, they're 90% to make the playoffs. If they don't, it's like a coin flip. So this Chiefs team, if they lose to Denver, they ain't winning the division. But we would agree on that. They're not doing it.
Oh, the urgency is absolutely with Kansas City. It is a must-win for Kansas City because Denver keeps winning ugly games. No question.
Now, the problem is Andy Reid off a bye, Chiefs off a loss. You talk to a lot of people. I don't know one person betting on the Denver Broncos at home here. Nobody. And if you look at some of the ticket counts, you can find them online. It's like 88% on the Chiefs.
That's why
so
it's.
Are you willing to hold your nose?
If it was 3, I would take Kansas City at 3.5. Remember last year, Bo Nix played well twice against Kansas City and Spags.
Yes, hold on. But one of those was week 18. The Chiefs benched all their guys, and he was great. The other one, he was good, though. The other one, he was good against Spags. Can you put in a text to Peyton and ask him if he has a good plays lined up? Like, I want to see the good plays, not this, pea shooter offense for 3 quarters. And then, we'll just come back in the fourth. Because, I don't know. I think we'll make this game a headlines game tomorrow. Right. But let's go to the Green Bay Packers. The struggling Green Bay Packers, Colin. 2 brutal losses. I mean, couldn't do anything against the Eagles. And they scored 13 points against the Carolina Panthers in a bad loss. So, yeah, if you're keeping track at home, that's 20 total points at home in the last 2 weeks. Here's Jordan Love talking about the offensive woes.
We're right there as an offense, and it just comes down to those small details that are, I think, holding us back. But, we have everything we need on offense. We got the right players. Obviously, we've got some injuries, but we still got the right mindset. We just got to find ways to focus more, hone in on those little details, and execute.
Yeah, I just think they can't run the ball. I don't think it's that, it seems to me they want to run the ball and they can't, and that's the beginning of the end to all their offensive issues.
So, in the NFL, basketball, every sport, we love to do the blame game, right?
Yeah.
Let me see your pie chart of the blame game for the Green Bay Packers. I know Micah Parsons is angry at you, so choose your words carefully. But, what's the problem here? This was a team 2 weeks in that everybody thought they're going to the show.
They can't run the ball. And so it's become a very Jordan Love-driven offense without Tucker Kraft, without Reed, with multiple injuries.
So why can't they run the ball?
Well, I think their offensive line has been disappointing. I think that interior line play has been bad. Banks, who they paid a fortune for from the Niners, has not been good at all. So they had a kind of a wonky, overpaid for an interior line position. It is not developed. The Bears went and bought Joe Thuney and Drew Dahlman and Jonah Jackson. Their interior O-line's been excellent. The Packers can't get the O-line right. So, when's the last time the Bears had the quarterback, the O-line, the pass pro, the run game better than Green Bay. So I think a lot of it is just O-line, lack of a run game, and injuries to like Kraft and Reed, and it's a BB gun offense.
Well, it's a good point on the Bears buying those offensive linemen. Why could they do that? Because Caleb Williams is on his rookie contract.
Right.
And Jordan Love got paid in the Escalade, as they like to say. And once you pay the quarterback, it becomes a little difficult to spread the money around. I'm going to go ahead and say there's a bit of an overreaction to this Packers. This was an island game, and it didn't look pretty. You know, listen, man, when the Jets get smashed tonight 38-3, and you're going to come on here tomorrow ripping the Jets, I get it. It's an island game. There's nothing else going on. I think the Packers are going to be okay.
Yeah.
This is going to sound crazy. I still think they can get to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. So I think there's some Super Bowl value on the Packers. You agree or no?
Do not agree.
That was quick.
Do not.
Final story is the Seahawks and your boy, Sam Darnold. I'm surprised he hasn't come on the show. You guys are so close. I mean, he's having a great year. This is a perfect time for him to do a victory lap. PFF grades Darnold as the highest rated quarterback this season. Somebody at the NFL Network said he's a top 5 quarterback through the first 10 weeks. Yeah. I think that's undeniable. Darnold has won 21 of his last 27 games going back to Minnesota last year. He's got a tall order against the Rams defense that I'm seeing some people start to poke some holes in. Daniel Jones, remember, carved these guys up and down the field at SoFi with the Colts. And if Adonai Mitchell doesn't drop a ball,
you and I are on opposite sides here. Yeah. I like Seattle in the points. I think Seattle, I don't like the Rams corners, and I think Seattle puts pressure on your corners. And if you can get good pass pro, Darnold's a good deep ball thrower. Mm-hmm. I also think Darnold moves, Stafford doesn't, so you can play around with a pocket. I think Seattle's a tough matchup for the Rams.
I don't disagree. The big question mark is, why is this not a field goal? Why are we – the Rams are supposedly one of the best teams in the league, and they're not even favored by a field goal at home? Something feels a little fishy to me. So you're probably on the right side. And I would guess on Sunday when the game day money comes in, you know, the big $250,000 bets, they're probably on Seattle. But I'm going to rock with Stafford. And I need to check Devontae Adams. Is he okay? Is he going to go with the back? He got hurt without getting hit. Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a problem. You know, if Puka's available, they're using now 2 and 3 tight end sets. Terrence Ferguson, Davis Allen, Colby Parkinson, Higbee. They have 4 tight ends they like. So that's not a big deal for them. And they've drafted a receiver pretty well. They got lower round guys they like. So I don't think they can score and move the ball. Kyron Williams, they've got a lot of offensive outlets. So the Seattle defense is nasty, but Colin? Devontae's going to play, it says here. Yes, yep. They're saying this Rams 3 tight end attack, they're so versatile now. I mean, listen, they could go 3 tight ends, and then the next play, hey, we got Puka and Devontae. You know, the Seattle defense this is going to be a very difficult task. I like this to be a high-scoring game. I don't see either defense getting stops. I think it's the best game of the weekend and maybe the best game of the year. Yeah. I think it's going to be so good. And it's on Fox. We're lucky there.